Saturday night was a 2-for-1 for new Miami Hurricanes commits. Transfer safety Savion Riley. Class of 2025 linebacker Elijah Melendez. Welcome to the
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And if you think the past couple days have been crazy, folks, we are 3 days away from National Signing Day. Things are just going to keep getting crazier. I am Alex Donno, your host. I'm a University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet, and contributor to allhurricanes.com. Thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today, even on a Sunday. We're free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. Smash that like button. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedon and use code LOCKEDON for a first deposit match up to $100. Daily fantasy sports made easy. Though when Dennis Smith, Miami's recruiting staffer, put out the old happy hour 2-for-1 thing yesterday, buckle up. We knew we were in for a busy Saturday evening. The first domino to drop last night was Vanderbilt transfer safety Savion Riley, who commits to Miami. Now, as we've talked about, along with defensive tackle, and Miami landed C.J. Clark the previous day, safety, another big-time position of need. Miami's losing Cam Kinchins and James Williams to the NFL draft, bringing in a safety. He's not a super experienced guy, but Savion Riley obviously does have some college experience coming out of Vanderbilt. To add someone who's, got a little bit of experience playing major college football is a huge deal. And this is a really nice player. 6'2", 202 pounds with 3 years of eligibility remaining. So Riley he's someone who can contend to start this year, but he's also a long-termer, which is nice. And he's got at least one friend on the roster. He joins his former Vanderbilt defensive back teammate, Jadis Richard, on the team. There's even been some chatter that Richard might end up moving from cornerback to safety. So maybe the two of them can end up starting together, if it plays out that way. They're going to have some competition, of course. So Savion Riley played in 8 games last season as a redshirt freshman at Vanderbilt. He did miss the other 4 he missed due to a concussion. He's fully recovered from that, by the way. Don't worry about that anymore. And despite missing 4 games, he was 5th on the team in tackles with 48 on the year. Had some really good tackling grades throughout the season. And Miami fans will like to hear this one. Arguably his best career performance came against Florida. He had a career-high 12 tackles against the Gators. And yeah, he's going to see the Gators again, several months from now, August 31st, to open up the season. Savion Riley played in high school for a great program in Georgia, Kennesaw Mountain. He's a former 3-star recruit from the class of 2022. Here's what he told Canes County, Miami's rival site, about the Hurricanes. Riley said, quote, "I keep mentioning development, but I just like the operation that they have there at Miami when I came down." He said, "I feel like I can be a scheme fit in what they do, just my play style matching what they want, my ability to really run on the back end. I just feel like it's the best fit for me," he said. And yeah, when it comes to development, Miami has done a good job in recent years with that. Riley was very complimentary about Hurricanes defensive backs coach Jamil Adai. Adai showed last year with Miami's corners coming out of the 2022 season that he can get players drafted, and he's about to show that again, because I mentioned Cam Kinchins and James Williams both going to the NFL. I expect both Kinchins and James to get taken within the first 3 rounds. So Miami's about to put another showcase when it comes to putting defensive back into the NFL. And so as far as the way Miami is setting up at the safety position for next year, so you got Savion Riley coming in. He's going to have a good chance to start. He's going to compete for a starting job. Jaden Harris did a nice job last year as Cam Kinchins' backup when he was injured. I love Caleb Spencer heading into his second year. This was a guy who really wowed me coming out of high school and wowed me during fall camp last season. And, I like Markeith Williams heading into his third year. Really good size on him. So, obviously you've lost, your two of the more important players on your defense in Williams and Kinchins, but you do have a nice group of young safeties that can push each other and can compete to start next year. And I have no doubt that unit's going to be well coached, right? We talk about Coach Adai, but it's not just Coach Adai, because defensive coordinator Lance Guidry, that's the position he played. That's the position he specializes in. And I've watched the way Miami practices and, the way they do it. Adai spends a lot of time with the corners, and Lance Guidry spends a lot of one-on-one time with the safeties. So that group is going to be very, very well coached. And even though you're losing a couple of really good ones to the NFL, I think you can end up getting good low-key production out of that position group this coming year. And our other welcome to the U for the day. I like this player a lot. I know that your excitement level, because he's not going to be here for another year, your excitement level may not be gigantic, but Elijah Melendez, 4-star class of 2025 linebacker, commits from Osceola High School in Kissimmee. This kid's only a junior, but he's already 6'2", 225 pounds. And again, if you're having trouble getting excited about this one because he's 2025, he's still a year away, do yourself a favor and watch Elijah's tape. That's what I did. When I started to hear the buzz, and it was actually, I got to give credit to our pal Chalupa Batman, because Chalupa Batman, I think he's got like a personal relationship. He and Elijah Melendez talk a lot, and Chalupa has been telling me for weeks, watch out for Elijah Melendez. He really likes Miami. I think he could commit anytime. And it finally happened last night. But when he started talking about this class of 2025 guy, I'm like, yeah, how excited can I get when we're still a year plus away from that one? Do yourself a favor and watch the tape, because that's going to get you excited about this player, okay? His range, speed, and explosiveness are off the charts. When I picture him in a Miami uniform, going sideline to sideline and just wrecking people, which is what he does in high school, and it looks like he's doing it in fast motion. It looks like, you remember the old VHS tapes when you'd hit fast forward and it's like someone's running in fast motion? That's the way Elijah Melendez plays, and he is an excellent sure tackler as well. Watching this dude, I want to jump through a brick wall, okay? Now, obviously, given that he's a class of 2025, you have to keep him locked in for a whole nother year before he can actually sign his national letter of intent. He's not reclassifying or anything like that. But look at the other finalists in Elijah's recruitment, okay? Before he committed to Miami on Saturday night, his top 8 was Alabama, Georgia, USC, Miami, Colorado, Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan. I mean, what a list. And it seemed like Melendez was really liking Penn State until Manny Diaz left there for the Duke job. So I guess thank you, Manny Diaz, for helping Miami land Elijah Melendez. That actually might have been the best recruiting job Manny Diaz ever did for Miami. I'll see myself out. Sorry, that was a cheap shot. I love you, Manny. All right, so we'll have the latest on the Miami Hurricanes quarterback hunt when we come back. What's the latest on Cam Ward coming off his Miami and Florida State visits? What's the latest on Will Howard? And Miami is trying to pull off a quartet of flips before National Signing Day. 4 players the Miami Hurricanes are trying to, with their spatulas out, they're trying to flip the following 4 players from their commitments to other schools. Keep it locked, my friends. We will have the latest right here on this all-new episode of Locked On Canes. And I know you're keeping it locked to eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. I am Alex Donno, your host. And guys, for the everydayers out there, if you want to take your everydayer experience to the next level and stay informed, especially in these crazy times, because it's Sunday right now, the next 72 hours heading into National Signing Day, it's going to be a crazy sprint. There's going to be potential flips, all sorts of surprise, not just at Miami, but around other places, potential Miami targets in recruiting. Of course, we're keeping our eye on transfer portal quarterbacks. You want to sign up for Locked On Canes Insiders. I include the link in the show description below. You get text messages directly from my phone to yours and vice versa with the latest recruiting and transfer portal news, breaking news on Miami, show updates and previews, one-on-ones with me. We're going to do some Q&A episodes throughout the coming week. So hit the link in the show description below. Subscribe to Locked On Canes Insiders. Try it free for 14 days. And then if you like it, you can opt in for $4.99 a month. We give you a lot of added value on there on Locked On Canes Insiders. All right, so here's the latest on the Miami Hurricanes quarterback hunt. All right, the two favorites have been Cam Ward and Will Howard. Those are the guys that I can absolutely confirm Miami's been interested in. A lot of people have asked me about KJ Jefferson from Arkansas, who's now in the transfer portal. Maybe Miami could be interested. I cannot confirm that at this time. There's been conflicting reports on whether Miami's interested in Dante Moore, the second-year transfer from UCLA, or Malik Murphy from Texas. But Will Howard and Cam Ward, those are the guys I can confirm Miami is very interested in. They have both visited this past week. Now, we mentioned on the show yesterday on Will Howard. Let's start with him. He went on a visit this weekend to USC. That visit went very well, okay? By all accounts, it went so well that the crystal balls are starting to fly in for Howard to commit to the Trojans, okay? Now, at the time that I am speaking these words, that has not officially happened yet. A lot of people are expecting it could happen any minute or any hour that Will Howard decides he's going to be a USC Trojan. It's not happened yet. But obviously, this is a top Miami target, and we are on high alert that Will Howard, the Kansas State quarterback transfer, might end up at USC. And like for any Miami fan out there who is like, I didn't really want this guy. I mean, if Lincoln Riley wants him, if the quarterback whisperer Lincoln Riley wants this dude, maybe you should rethink that. But I do agree, and I understand that Miami has definitely wanted Cam Ward at least a little bit more than they wanted Will Howard, okay? So if Howard might be about to commit to USC, what's going on with Ward? Top-ranked transfer portal quarterback. Former Washington State QB. Remember, he and Kiko Mauinoa are pretty tight. Kiko, a former Washington State player, hosted Ward down here during his visit. What's the latest on Ward? So Ward right now, he's back home in Texas, flew straight back home to Texas after his Florida State visit yesterday, and he's thinking things over. It sounds like he's going to spend the rest of today, according to his father, who's spoken extensively on the situation, that Ward is going to spend the rest of today thinking things over, fishing, maybe taking his mind off of all of it. I don't know, the whole sleep on it or rest on it thing. And then according to Ward's father, Monday is when Ward's really going to dive into the serious conversations with mom and dad to try to sort of collaborate on what the best decision might be. Now, his father did confirm that Cam is not going to take any more visits, okay? We talked yesterday about Louisville. Louisville was trying to sneak Cam in for a visit right before the dead period, right after his Florida State visit, but Ward's father shut that rumor down. He's not going to be visiting anywhere else, just Miami and Florida State, okay? Now, you remember after his Miami visit, which by all accounts went really well. We talked about that earlier in the week. Also, initial reports were optimistic after his Florida State visit. Florida State also felt like they knocked it out of the park the way Miami felt like they knocked it out of the park. But since that visit ended at Florida State, there has been some chatter from people who cover Florida State University that maybe FSU is more likely to end up with DJ Uiagalelei, the former Clemson and Oregon State quarterback, than they are with Cam Ward. And again, the way that their beat writers have been reporting on this quarterback search is very strange, because they make it sound like Ward really wants to be at Florida State, but Florida State is not so sure if they want Ward, which I find that hard to believe. I find it hard to believe that Florida State wouldn't really covet Ward the same way Miami and Ohio State, before they were kind of knocked out of the race and others really, really wanted this guy. So it almost sounds to me like the Florida State writers are kind of setting themselves up for, hey, if we don't get him, it's not because he didn't want to be here. It's because Norvell didn't want him. Norvell would prefer DJ than Ward. Now, it is worth noting, because every time I sing the praises of Cam Ward, because I'm very high on him, and I think if Ward ends up at Miami, I think he makes this offense dramatically better and more dynamic, and he's going to give you potentially an opportunity to win double-digit games this year if he winds up in Miami. However, I am aware that he's had some fumbling problems. So I just want to put that out there. I just want to put it out there, because if I don't put it out there, my comments will be flooded with, yeah, but this guy fumbled 17 times. He did lead the Pac-12 in fumbles last year. That's been an issue for him. Ball security is definitely something he has to clean up. No question about that. The interceptions have not been a problem for him, but the fumbles have been. I am aware of that, okay? So if Florida State writers are starting to maybe pivot a little bit to DJ Uyunglele, does that mean Cam definitely goes to Miami? Not necessarily, okay? Because Ward's father has said repeatedly over the last 2 days that he is still seriously weighing his option to go to the NFL draft. Now, if he does go to the draft, this is not an exact science, especially before he even starts the process. I don't feel like he would be taken any higher than the 3rd round and probably 3rd day, but that's just, what do I know? Okay. I'm just spitballing here. They may get different information on that. All right. So he's still kind of considering the option of going to the NFL. And Ward and his family have also said that he might actually take until Christmas to decide. Emphasis on the word might take until Christmas, because I suspect that he could make up his mind sooner than that, maybe Monday or Tuesday, because the clock is ticking on both sides, right? I know Miami and Florida State, they might be willing to wait a couple more days for him to decide, but I don't know if either program can afford to wait another 8 days for his decision, because the other quarterbacks that are in the portal, the ones that haven't already flown off the board, a lot of those are going to be off the table by Christmas Day. So I feel like there's obviously pressure for Miami and for Florida State, because they want their quarterback as soon as possible. And then at a certain point, Ward also has to feel that pressure that, hey, right now I've got some really, really good options to play, but if I wait too long, those options may not be on the table by the time I make up my mind. So there definitely is a little bit of pressure on both sides. And I would imagine that, Miami has some, plan C's and plan D's. I don't think they're like seriously pursuing anybody else until they figure out what happens with Ward and Howard, for that matter, because he's still technically not committed to USC just yet. So we're going to see how this one plays out. Okay. By the way, here is what Cam Ward's father says that Cam is looking for in his next school. He made these comments to Kane Sport on 3. Let me know how many of these boxes you think Miami checks off when you hear Ward Sr. talking about what he's looking for. The big thing Cam was looking for is an offense that he can make sure he fits in, an offense that throws the ball, offensive line with guys that have been there, veteran offensive linemen, receivers that can go get the ball, and a complementary defense. I think those are the things he's looking for. He only has 1 year left, so he's got to go in and get it. So if you think about those things, obviously Miami checks off the box of offensive line. They're going to keep him protected. He did not get good protection at Washington State the last couple of years, especially last year. Miami is going to have one of the better offensive lines in the country, okay? Miami's defense, one of the better defenses in the nation last year. They can definitely play complementary football. We have seen that. I mean, obviously there were a couple exceptions to that. The Louisville game last year, the second half against North Carolina, but by and large, for the better part of 10 games, Miami's defense was awesome last year. As far as an offense that throws the football, it kind of depends on which game you look at, right? Because there were a handful of games when Miami was high flying, Texas A&M game, the last 2 games of the year when Tyler Van Dyke started to play really well again. Then obviously, Mario has the reputation of, being conservative, pounding the rock. And in some of those games when Van Dyke was struggling, and in the games Emory Williams started where he didn't have the experience, Miami was very, very run heavy in those games. So it kind of depends on which game tape you want to look at. As far as receivers, honestly, I think Miami has a better situation at wide receiver than a lot of the outsiders would consider. Jacoby George and Xavier Restrepo are both coming off of really, really good seasons last year. I expect a guy like Ray Joseph to be able to step up and become a bigger part of the offense. Brashard Smith doesn't seem like he's leaving. I know that there was some concern about him entering the transfer portal. I think Brashard Smith is more than likely going to stay at Miami. You've got, I don't know how much they're going to get on the field, but dynamic true freshmen coming in. I mean, you can't tell me JoJo Trader and Nye Carr aren't going to get on the field at least a little bit this year. So I think Miami is in a better situation at receiver than like Florida State fans would tell you. Like, they got nobody that can catch on that team. I mean, actually, Jacoby George put up better numbers than Keon Coleman did last year. If we're just talking about statistics, all right. Not saying he's a better player, but Jacoby George put up really good numbers last year, and Xavier Restrepo put up some of the best numbers in the country last year. So I think Miami's in a better situation at receiver than you would expect. They definitely check off some of those boxes. Okay. So let's do a quick recruiting rundown here, because official visits finishing up this morning. We're entering the quiet period later today, followed by the dead period. So you're wrapping up contact with these players. I think Miami is in a good position to flip at least 2 out of the 4 uncommitted or committed to other schools players who visited over this weekend. And there is a scenario where they could go 4 for 4, because I think there's some optimism about all 4 of these guys. Our confidence level here on Locked On Canes is very high on Armondo Blount, the 5-star defensive tackle who was committed to Miami, then Florida State, still Florida State, but maybe Miami again. By the way, if you want a good follow on X/Twitter, Armondo Blount's mother is hilarious. She's been clowning FSU fans and going back and forth with these weird nerds that are like, it's just like people are like, she's the parent of a 16-year-old recruit. And these Florida State fans are trashing this kid. They're cursing at him. They're talking about he's no loyalty. And Armondo Blount's mom is going back and forth with these dudes. It is hilarious. So our confidence level is very high with Blount. Confidence has stayed high with Jordan Lyle, the 4-star running back of St. Thomas Aquinas, possibly flipping from Ohio State. And listen, Miami is also not giving up hope on keeping Kevin Riley in the class. Despite Kevin Riley, another 4-star running back committed to Miami, he's been visiting Alabama this weekend. Miami has stayed in contact with him, and we're not for sure he's flipping. It may happen, but Miami could end up with all 3 of Kevin Riley, Jordan Lyle, and Chris Wheatley-Humphrey in this class, which would be, one of the better running back freshman classes maybe ever, certainly in Miami history. We've had some really good ones down here. Miami also got a visit from 4-star Florida committed linebacker Adarius Hayes. Hayes told Cane Sport on 3 that he's going to be announcing Wednesday at 1 p.m. He says, it's between Miami and Florida. I'll be announcing at my high school at 1 p.m. at his signing day ceremony. He says that when he returns home, which is happening, I think he's on his way home now, it's going to be time to weigh the pros and cons of each program. He says, I'll be doing that with my parents and with my head coach. And again, he's not gotten the crystal balls just yet to flip to Miami, but our confidence level has been rising with Adarius Hayes. Okay. The other one committed elsewhere, American Heritage safety, Xavier Lucas, who's committed to Wisconsin. He also visited Miami over the weekend. Now, according to 24/7, Miami's basically been chipping away and encouraging him to stay home, that they don't want top players like himself leaving the area. And apparently for a while, he was kind of hesitant to give Miami an opportunity, but Miami has done a good job building that relationship, and he's coming out of this visit today with a tough decision to make. So he could end up here. And it's been good to hear this morning that at least, and obviously most of the incoming 2024 class, most of them will be early enrollees, but a few more have confirmed that. Wide receiver Nye Carr, receiver JoJo Trader, safety Zaquan Patterson, Nino Francavilla, the center, have all confirmed that they are going to be enrolling early, meaning they'll be around for spring football, which is great, okay? Some of those guys will get more playing time than others this coming year. Like, I don't know how much Francavilla is going to play the first year, but He might be Miami's center of the future a couple years, because I think Miami's trying to land Zach Carpenter to be the center this year. And then 2025, maybe that's when Frank Avila takes over. But it's good to hear these guys are planning on committing and arriving early. So, folks, huge thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. It's already been a busy month of December. That's only going to continue the next few days. So if you appreciate the content we're giving to you guys, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're listening to the audio version, fantastic. And if you haven't, it's a great way, because I know you can't always like sit around and watch the video. You can listen to the audio version in the car. You can listen while you're taking a jog. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review on any of those services you use. It really goes a long way to helping spread the word about what we're doing here. Sign up for Locked On Canes Insiders, link in the show description below. After you're done watching Locked On Canes, make sure to watch Locked On Sports Today. This network has a 24/7 streaming sports YouTube channel, the only one of its kind, the first of its kind. Locked On Sports Today. Search for it on YouTube. And folks, we will talk to you again next time on another episode of Locked On Canes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.